Hey everyone, welcome. I am playing with some Bluetooth, some audio equipment here, getting started. I'm going to have to switch to another device in just 1 minute, but if I may, in the meantime, I'd love for Smart Contract to come up, be speaker, maybe Tommy as well, while we get this space set up to talk about the Catalyst Circle. Apologies, everybody. I was too close to another device. This is QuasarSure. My Bluetooth and stuff's working on this device. So, Tommy, Smart Contract, welcome. Please jump in if you'd like to. And there's the good old Lido as a host. Welcome, everyone.
Yeah, no, thanks for hosting the space. I'm here just to learn more about Catalyst Circle and kind of where it's going, some of the responsibilities. I know there's a lot going on in terms of how things are changing, so just here to kind of learn. So thanks for having us here.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks to ADAO for hosting the space. I'll be switching over to the Quasar account in just a moment once that battery is charged a little bit more. Well, before we dive in too deep, real quick, introduction to the circle. I'm going to pin this up to the top in a minute, but it was something that IOG had suggested to Catalyst to form a circle to give a stronger voice, a united voice to all of the functional groups within Project Catalyst, or the functional roles. So started out with 5 seats with 2 additional IOG and CF, but the 5 main ones were groups of people that were performing specific roles within Project Catalyst. So you had your SPOs. They, believe it or not, they initiated the conversations to get this through SPOCRA and a few other groups. And without the stake pool operator network, without stake pools, there's no Cardano and there's no Catalyst. So they are really the core of Project Catalyst, and they need to play a bigger role in Catalyst. That's my personal opinion, just for the record there. And then you've got your community advisors. At the time, that's what they were called. Now they're the proposer assessors, that group. Then you've got a group for funded proposals, tool makers and maintainers, and then the general voter would be the 5th one. Again, going back to that first one, which was SPOs. So that's the introduction of who they were, and this came through IOG, on what the circle was to be, back in June or July of last year. So the circle is over a year old. A lot of people in Catalyst are experiencing their first year anniversary. So that's really the introduction. It was to facilitate communication between all the people in groups within Catalyst, and to facilitate that communication amongst those groups and with IOG and CF. So that's an intro real quick.
Yeah, appreciate that. So are they modeling this to be applied in kind of that Voltaire era, or kind of what are your thoughts on that? How is this kind of an experiment to that degree that they're trying to figure out some of the different processes that they could use?
Yes, I would say that this is one experiment in the collection of experiments inside the collection of the series of Project Catalyst, and the Catalyst Circle was one of those iterations, one of the experiments to assist the process and the community to have a say in the Treasury post-Voltaire. So once Voltaire's there, the Circle is there to represent the community, the Innovation Fund itself, and help facilitate the movement and direction of Project Catalyst. That was mentioned as I understand it. Forgive me, everyone, I stepped away. If anybody asked anything, I missed it.
I missed it too. Oh, hey, it's Quasar.
Hey, Lido. How are you?
I'm doing good. Not sure about Circle Rep though.
That's all right. Do you have any questions for, not for the Circle, but questions about the Circle? Because I'm here really in an unofficial capacity to talk about it in a general aspect, general way.
How do we avoid the Circle? Because we do need a bureaucracy. Is there a role for bureaucracy with the Circle and Catalyst?
I think we'll take our bureaucracy the way we take our decentralization, but probably on opposite spectrums. We want to be high decentralized, low bureaucracy, but that bureaucracy is one of those terms that we can put any adjective in front of it that we want, just like decentralization, and it have different effects and different meanings. So unfortunately, a little bureaucracy. There's always going to be a little red tape, and I think we all agree to go by a little red tape within Catalyst, but certainly not a lot. And I feel like the bureaucracy, if it gets too much, it totally stifles the intent of the Circle and the intent of Catalyst and of all the groups that the Circle is supposed to represent. So a limited bureaucracy, but enough to get things going and moving.
Yeah, that seems like a good thing to strive for. So what's happening with the Circle now? Is the vote schedule or the candidates locked in? I've not been keeping too close of an eye. If you are speaking, I am not hearing you.
Yep, that was the answer. That's your answer for where this. You know, that was the deliberate the pause for suspense. So where the Circle is right now is we're finally, in my opinion, making the way to defining the nominee qualifications and guidelines, and getting that ready to go out to a formal or official announcement that the nomination period is open and people can nominate themselves. It's my understanding that we're leaving it pretty open as far as, does anyone need to be a part of a certain group? Are we sticking to the 5 seats or the 5 roles? right now it seems like we're kind of staying close to that framework, but opening it up for some more interpretive or flexible positions. We'll have a meeting Monday to iron out some of the conversations or the considerations around this being a funded group, whether it be through a parameter change or it be a volunteer basis. So right now, where does the circle stand? We're finalizing the nominee criteria and the form to submit to nominate someone or yourself. And then once that comes out, we'll be looking at doing the voting probably around 30 days after, within 30 days, I hope. I think one of the more important questions for the group and for the community is the circle something that the community believes is essential to Catalyst? And is it something that's deserving of a parameter change to be voted on or to be funded through Catalyst, except funded outside of idea scale, not where anyone has to vote on that, where it would be compensated similar to one of the other roles like a challenge team or a proposal assessor, a referrer, all the other incentivized roles within Catalyst. So I think that's a big question the community is asking and is going to be asked, in my opinion. So is it a parameter change to fund Circle for how long and how much? Or is it to be volunteer basis on as needed? These are things that we all have to talk about or think about. Sense.
Is it though? I haven't recalled any open discussion on Catalyst parameter change where the community was invited to them. And I've attended a lot of town halls. Is parameter change a thing that we talk about as a community?
Well, it's a thing that was introduced to Circle version 2, CCV2, the Catalyst parameter pilots. And, you know, maybe the conversation isn't happening in the entire community at once because that's quite broad. However, certain communities have had discussions and have changed parameters. In my opinion, these are parameters within Catalyst, such as the name change from community advisor to proposal assessor. Insignificant, but it is a change. Also,
wait. Let's step back for a second. So what are these parameter pilots, the current state of that?
The current state, if I'm not mistaken, is it was kind of put on hold at the beginning of the year, but that's still, while it's officially on hold, it's unofficially something that is part of the overall plan from IOG on how to make this transition to where the community and the Treasury have a better relationship. I can find the introductory tweet, I believe, to the parameter pilot change, and this was something that was introduced in Fund 7. So it's been around a little bit.
Parameter pilot, I still don't know what the noun is, though. What is the noun? Like, what is the thing?
The Catalyst parameter pilot?
Yeah, what is that? Is that a way for which the community can introduce changes to Catalyst or what?
Absolutely. Yeah. It was I'll find this and pin it to the top in a minute, but it was how the community could identify issues, bring them together, raise the issue, get the data, get the information, get the feedback, and make a case to IOG on what types of changes would be, requested. And if the community has the confidence, and that's not the right word that I'm looking for, but if enough people in the community agree in the change, then it would be presented to IOG, and IOG would consider it and support the change or not support it. Ideally, offer feedback on what parts of it were supportable. I think I made up a word there. So one of the other items that had been changed was the proposal application within idea scale. That, a change in idea scale in my mind is a design parameter, and the funded proposers group, that circle and subcircle, they all put together surveys and feedback from that community, put it forward to IOG, and that's why the proposal template within IDISCO was different in Fund 9 as opposed to Fund 8 and Fund 7. So officially or unofficially, is that a change? I can't really speak to that, but it was something that was changed within Catalyst.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I'm familiar with that change. It screwed up all my tools. But I think the new fields and the more detailed fields were great to have. So can't wait for the next change.
Well, I like part that goes back to the circles, their first goal. The first goal of circle is to communicate amongst the groups and get the groups communicating.
Can we hang on that first goal for a second? How's the circle doing that, this communication?
How is the circle, or how has the circle done it,
How is it intend to do it now?
There's options here. I would be a fan of making CCV4 of just strictly, let's focus on goal 1, the communication. How do we do that? My intent, or what I would like to see, is more Twitter spaces, believe it or not, more of the Polis surveys, and more engagement between the circle, IOGCF, what they have to input into the circle, and to the broader community. And that's not limited to Twitter spaces, but to Facebook, to every social media, taking information out to where people are, as opposed to expecting them to come into a Gitbook or a Telegram channel to get this information. So the goal, or what I see happening, is more people being involved and getting more information out to people as it's ready and prepared to be consumed or digested. How is it being done right now? This is one method. This is part of it. How's it been done in the past? It's been through a town hall, a telegram, and maybe a few other ones, but I don't feel like that communication has been where it should have been from the beginning.
Wait, so the circle right now, or is there a circle right now, or is CCV4, is there a current sitting concept of a circle?
Yeah, there's close enough, in my opinion. So there's not the people that were elected, which would be
Right.
myself, Archangel Bob or Solar, and someone yet to be determined for the PA group. So those are the 3 that weren't really elected, but we're still sitting in as part of the sub-circle group to facilitate that communication. And then you still have your SPO rep, your toolmaker and maintainer rep, your IOG rep, and let's see, at least CF rep. It was Bullish Dumpling, and then Felix for the CF. So there's enough that we could call it a part of a circle, parts of circles. There's a group of people that are meeting and trying to facilitate and expedite the next election.
So these people that are meeting, what's their mandate? Is it getting Circle V4 going, or do they have other agendas besides that?
Well, when I started with the circle, the first thing that I understood needed to be done was to get legitimacy or buy-in from the community that this circle was important and something that was needed. So that was my first agenda item as being part of the circle. That survey that was completed a while back, whether it be controversial or not, was to legitimize or get community to verify the legitimacy of the circle itself as a body. Now the circle is looking to, right now at this very point, figure out, and this meeting's happening Monday, the parameters or order to ask the nominees or to ask for nominees to join for Circle V4. So that's a part of this election. So ultimately, Circle's main focus right now is the election for CCV4, but there are items that have to be ironed out before we're ready to move full steam ahead with the election.
So I heard two mandates. One, validate community buy-in, and then two, get the CCV4 cohort ready to go do their thing. So on the buy-in, what was the outcome of that? Was that published anywhere?
It was not published anywhere. I found out that it was confirmed that the buy-in was there during one of the meetings when I asked if we had accomplished that, and was informed that yes, we had. I was informed by that through the facility. So that mandate was not only accomplished but confirmed. That circle was important to the community. And then the other mandates, getting the election going, that depends. I don't think it depends on whether or not we find out how to fund the circle. It's going to happen one way or another, but we'd like nominees to know what they're getting themselves into, because, you know, in the past it says a 10-hour a week minimum time commitment. You know, it has that 10-hour plus, you know, like Disney Plus and ESPN Plus. It's 10-hour plus. You get all this extra plus. For one person, it's a little bit more than 10 hours, as the circle is now, which is a little bit discombobulated. I think once the circle has some definition and some guidelines or guardrails, then it might be a 10-hour a week commitment.
I don't mean to hog the mic, by the way. If anybody else has anything to say about this, please see if you can get Quasar to say random things. He's been very not random today, which is surprising. But that is an open challenge. Throw Quasar a curveball, they say. Okay, so back to the serious talk. So the current cohort, they supposedly have validated that there's buy-in, even though we don't know the full results, but we'll take the word for it. And they're trying to get this next cohort going. So what does that mean? Does that mean getting people elected and defining the mandate for Circle, or would these new people be the one who gets to say, this is what the Circle is, this is what the Circle does?
I believe it's safe for me to say that the circle is going to stick towards the goals that were introduced originally. The four goals were facilitate communication amongst the functional groups and stakeholders. So, you know, that's going to stay part of the circle, as is defining the election process for the next circle. Those are the two out of the four that will, I'm sure, always be there. The second one is to provide a heads up or notify the right people if any red lines have. So this is really a tricky one. This is where the code of conduct comes into play. And it's not just for the circle. It's really for the community, for Catalyst. You know, how, if you have an issue, where do you go with it? what's our dispute resolution process? How do we enforce it? You know, that's one of the original goals. And then the third goal is to introduce feedback from the community for potential parameter changes. So you've got the first goal, which is communicate amongst the groups, everybody talking and sharing information. The second one is notify of red lines if there's anything that the community needs to be aware of. Third one is updates to Catalyst from the community, how to improve it. And then the fourth one is defining the election process. So those are the four original goals of the circle. I don't see those going anywhere. I think we still kind of need to focus on one and two. 3 is actually happening. You know, it's just not in a way that is all inclusive. Everyone's up. And 4 is, you know, it's happening now, and it'll continue to happen as our governance and voting systems move forward. Now, to your question specifically or directly, there's a good chance that the fourth circle or version 4 of the circle will be a little more open to self-defining, picking out items, topics, organizational strategies, and methods to help improve the Catalyst experience. So there's a chance that, you know, there's going to be 5 seats, but they're not defined by the 5 functional groups specifically. I think we're leaving that open for the circle, next version of the circle, to define themselves and how to best represent the community and their communities. Which, if it was up to me, I would just say, hey, let Cardano over coffee do it all. I know Hero is up for it. I know Lido's up for it. Put them in charge of Catalyst Circle. And we could talk about Catalyst and Catalyst Circle all day long, Monday through Friday, 9:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. And the show's viewership would go down drastically. So there's some random stuff for you, Lido.
This is what Cook Time would say, 1 hundo.
Good. You know, Catalyst Circle version 1, the way that the circle idea was introduced to the community and the way that it was received, you know, I think everyone was kind of not sure of what the circle was supposed to be. So circle version 1 was really a, hey, here's water, learn to swim, or learn to get out, or whatever you want to call it. So version 1 didn't have a lot of traction or a lot of direction. V2 did have more direction, but there was other things happening, little dramas, little misunderstandings. And version 2, V2, started right around Fund 7, which is also when we introduced challenge teams. We introduced the Catalyst natives, which that's where Cody was introduced to Catalyst. So there was a lot of things happening all at once that also made it difficult for those people that did volunteer and nominate themselves for version 2 to get wrapped up in. And maybe wrapped up's not the right word, but to get stretched and spread too thin within the entire Catalyst ecosystem. Same thing with version 3, I believe. And anytime you have a circle made of 5 people that are also doing multiple projects and maybe having day jobs, regular jobs, and families in real life, it's too much, in my opinion, for just to have one person represent the entire community. So like one of the roles is the general ADA holder. So how can one person actually represent that stakeholder group of the general ADA holder? That's a huge group. It's deserving of its own circle, in my opinion. And I would certainly invite anyone to come up and chat or ask questions. I do not want to be the one talking about this the whole time, although I can. You know, and the circle itself has meetings every other Tuesday. No, I'm so sorry, every other Wednesday, but also a working meeting on the Thursdays between those Thursdays. Plus, I was wrong. They have a scheduled work meeting every other Thursday, and then a voluntary working meeting on the Thursdays between those. And they generally run 2 hours each.
You know what was really confusing for me as a voter and as someone who, yeah, as a voter, I'll just keep it at that. When I, put that back, Joanna. Thank you. When I put in in the voting tool, Catalyst Circle, it's, a lot of proposals come up, a lot, like, and like right now, as I'm talking to you and doing this, 305 proposal comes up, and then 116 has been funded. That is so confusing. Nobody knows what that means. There is Catalyst Circle, Governance, Oversight Circle, Power Up Circle, Audit Circle. I feel like there should be some sort of code of conduct on using Catalyst Circle as part of your proposal or something, or some clarity. I'll just make that a general open-ended question of what do you think? What is that? What do you think that there's 305 related Catalyst Circle proposals?
I think I could get in a lot of trouble with that. I believe that part of what CCV2 was instructed to do was to grow the circle's effect or impact on Catalyst, whether that was through additional proposals or stronger communication or improving the direction of Circle. You know, then that's another story. I believe that there should be something to confirm whether or not it's a Catalyst Circle project or proposal, using the name, using the sign value, if you will. That's my big key word is it's misleading, in my opinion, especially if it's not being audited. I don't want to say too much about the Catalyst Circle proposals, but yeah, if you put that into your tool and you get 300 proposals come up and you said 116 funded, that's not, I'm going to say that that's not pure data that we can really go off of. It's data that we need to audit and define. But that would be bureaucracy, perhaps. I'm going to leave it there and welcome Checkpoint to the table, to the microphone, and also Archangel Bob. Either of you like to say something, and welcome. Before you do that, please retweet the space, or do it at the same time if you can talk. And
I'm trying to share it now. Hello, everybody. I'll just quickly come on. Sorry, I've been MIA for the last few weeks. We've had a lot of stuff going on every level, but I've missed the whole Catalyst Circle completely. I don't even know what I've just seen it pop up. I've started getting my head back into it, and I don't understand what it is, what it's supposed to do. And you just said the word bureaucracy, and that was literally what I was coming on to say. Isn't this adding just another layer of confusion and bureaucracy to the whole process? And how do you communicate something like the Catalyst Circle when you're already in a space that's already quite confusing and quite complicated? Sorry for such a vague question.
It's a great question. It's a great question. I want to apologize. I really wanted to be here for the whole thing. I've just a lot of things going on right now at home. There's so much to unpack, right? And it really takes a lot of time to think about all of the things, right? And the things are like threads. And for me, the question is whether the threads can be intelligently put together so that we make, just a nice tapestry. The reason, Checkpoint, that we have to grapple with bureaucracy because there's a billion data that in theory the community owns, a billion, right? And there's more coming all the time. Every 5 days, there's like 12 to 14 million ADA added to this treasury. And the reason that I believe that the community really, the people who are really in the community, the larger Cardano community as well as the Catalyst community, the reason that they really need to grapple with the circle is to come to as much of a consensus as is possible to have a voice, right? Because if we diddle around and can't make up our minds about, even the simplest things, even just the basic concepts of what a community treasury means and how a community can express itself to whatever bureaucracy exists, then somebody else will. And this is really important, right? It's a billion fucking ADA plus. And somebody's going to decide what to do with it. Somebody's going to exert influence to do something with it.
But that's the question, if you don't mind me just jumping in here. Why does it have to be somebody? I mean, surely the technology is there, and the whole point is to include things. And I'm not necessarily suggesting that this would be the answer, but a smart contract or an algorithm or something like that could be. I mean, it's going to be harder to manipulate. I mean, excuse my naivety if that's not right.
No,
Why are we putting a human in the equation?
Right, and this is the question: why does a libertarian like Charles Hoskinson want something called liquid democracy? Right, and I don't ask the question from a suspicious perspective, but what's the point? And for me, this is the beginning of taking away the humans, right? And there would be no way to properly assess what should be done with this treasury once it existed, which it started existing when Shelley started minting blocks, right? And I think that what everybody who's building, like technically building on the Cardano protocol realizes is it's really difficult, right? There's a long learning curve. And for some people, a steep learning curve. For other people, it's not so steep a learning curve. But there's a learning curve. And how to create smart contracts appropriately, safely, securely, and effectively for whatever their goal is. And that's a longer process. Just like, figuring out what does the community want dealt with by smart contract. Can we reduce the number of things?
I can tell you what the community wants straight away.
I'm sure you know all 3 million people.
Well, I can tell you, if you speak to everybody, the common top line will be, it's too expensive, too technical, there aren't enough developers, and that's what I would say most people would say, and it's harder to get into the ecosystem as a result of that. That's just my
Okay, but see, this is a different thing, right? That gets to the heart of what is proof of work, what is proof of stake. Somebody who's put in the time to learn it. And this is my point, right? The leaders in this are the people that built the protocol. The leaders in this are the people that already understand these languages and how to integrate them. And the community is, by comparison, a discombobulated group of people.
I
right?
completely agree. Yeah. I mean, I'm not arguing that at all. My argument is so we're not building technical stuff. We're building an ecosystem of content, right? Because everybody's building structure, infrastructure, and everything else. So technically, I don't need to be technically savvy in that way, if that makes sense. However, if I want to apply into that blockchain, then I need to be able to create those smart contracts. Now, there are established people or companies that work in those fields. So there are a couple of already established developers that write specifically that IOG have personally taken on board. So why can't what I don't understand is why can't we have a group of respected, established, and known developers for smart contracts, NFTs, whatever it is, that are endorsed by and recommended by Cardano Circle, that then allow for people to then access that, which would make it easier. And it would also mean that they have a direct line with the people that they're talking to, rather than being discombobulated and not knowing what the hell.
Well, they're discombobulated by different projections on what they think the Cardano protocol can do for them. And that necessarily means a wide array of potential smart contracts that need to be developed. And this is early, right? Those things aren't written yet. Plutus version 2 doesn't even exist yet for the masses, right? And you have to think about what that means. I'm not technical, but I've been around computers since the 70s, so I understand the technical concepts and the technical problems and the things that need to be thought through, right? And it's not that I'm a genius, it's just been a part of my life since I was a kid. So what is being attempted to be done is multifaceted. There are, as I said when I first started speaking, there are a lot of threads, and there is no simple fix for quote unquote the community, right? That has to be filtered and figured out, and people have to find one another. To get back to as a body, as an expression, in theory, of the community's will, have to keep in mind that they have not had any authority to do anything except decide how the next circle is going to be elected. And that's just been a year that's been going on, and it's a problem, right? I mean, Quasar and I have been sitting in as proxies for the elected reps roles that we're proxying for, and to try to squeeze and compress what needs to be discussed for the next election in 2 hours every week, not every other week like everybody thinks, is really, really difficult. It's difficult just to have enough time. And so I would hope, right? Circle version 3 was a clusterfuck from the beginning on, because most, if not all, of the circle reps that were elected thought that they were being elected for 3 months, and then as soon as it was too late to back out, it was 6 months. And that was a problem for a couple of the members. And then they had personality issues with one of the members. So Circle version 3 was not the productive thing that everybody might have hoped or would have liked to have seen. And we need to start thinking about what's coming to us after this hard fork. We need to think about what Charles is saying when he says that the foundation that they're going to create is going to include members from the community who have worked their way in or bought their way in. Think about what that means. And if the community, who in theory decides what happens with this treasury, wants to be a part of that process, then we need to start expressing ourselves competently, learning how to grapple with these concepts and these different factors and threads that I keep referring to in an intelligent way. And it's easy to go off, in our minds and in these conversations. But if we don't get focused about this, then that group of people that Charles has in his mind, they'll decide for us. And I have no fantasy where I think Charles Hoskins is going to call me up and say, hey, Steve, you've worked really hard, and we think your voice should be heard on the foundation. I don't think that. I don't know if anybody in this space right now has that kind of perception about themselves. But I'm going to tell you, it's probably not us in this room that are going to be invited.
Can I ask almost a controversial question then?
Sure.
The question is then, what does this do in the trust and faith in ADA and Charles's leadership of ADA? What is this going to do to the community?
You know, I like Charles. I like what he says most of the time. I like what he does most of the time. And he's like, he's like, I'm trying to use an appropriate metaphor. He's a fucking tease. That's what I want to say. You know, he's never telling you everything that that he's not telling you his whole train of thought, right? He's hinting at what's coming. And I think that he wants to be fair. All of my interactions with the input-output representatives who interact with Catalyst and with the Circle, I like these guys. They're in it for the same reasons I'm in it. I do believe that. I'm in it because I want to see the unbanked banked. I want to see a new financial ecosystem in the world. And Charles has said repeatedly over the years, the best solutions are going to come from the bottom up. And yet he can only necessarily work from the top down. The bottom up is us. And we have to be intelligent enough to understand the possibility, the implication, and the responsibility to do right by the community for one another so that we all feel like we can express ourselves and express some intent, you know, with the Treasury, because the Treasury is the only thing that requires us to have a bureaucracy. And it's my hope, it would be my hope, that at some point the necessary functions that community implies would be to smart contracts. But, you know, that's a long ways off, right? Because there's a lot of all of that stuff that affects people, and there's a lot of opinions to hear. There's a lot of factors to weigh, and they are evolving, right? As the ecosystem grows, those questions get more complicated, not less complicated. And these are the things that I think, you know, we should be keeping in the back of our mind as we talk about this subject, as we get ready for the next circle election. And my hope is that the next circle is not 7 white guys nodding their heads at one another. It's really disturbing to me.
You say nodding, I say shaking, but either way, it's white guys. You know, and
sorry,
if I may, you know, the introduction of the Circle is in my opinion, and I think quite factual, IOG's attempt to relieve themselves of the decision-making functions of Catalyst itself. I mean, IOG is trying to move Catalyst to the community and be less in charge of it and making all the decisions. So wanted to reset with that idea.
But the question still stands, if you don't mind me kind of pushing a little bit more, is that, look, you know, Catalyst has been a community and has been around for a while, shown its commitment to the blockchain. The people that are involved in it, especially those that get funding, that don't get funding, the people that come back, there is a level of loyalty and commitment that is completely undeniable. So it just seems crazy that all of a sudden we've got this other group of people that could potentially come in if they bought in or voted in, that could absolutely change the direction and the course of everything that's been established up until this point. So the question still stands, if that happens, what trust will remain in the blockchain and how many people will continue to develop on it?
Yeah, so, you know, I agree with how you characterize Catalyst. You know, the only thing I would add to it is that it is um, there's not been a strategy. There's been an open door policy, and the range and the growing number of the range of proposals are all over the place. Right? And that's been disturbing to me for 6-8 months, right? You know, like, where's the focus on banking the unbanked in terms of like a lot of proposals working collaboratively and coherently towards that goal? You know, there's been a lot of people pursuing their projections on what it might be or should be or could be, you know, those types of proposals. There's been a lot of differing different strategies working on the same problem, and I think that's great, right? But then, like, there's also been huge lack of clarity and nice numbers of money given to people who are creating some strategy for Catalyst, and then they get funding, and then nobody knows what that means. Does that mean I get to change Catalyst? Yeah, no, no, it doesn't mean that. And that's not just one proposal. There have been several proposals to improve Catalyst, and they do their work, and then how do they feel they improved? How does it actually get implemented? And in large degree, a lot of those types of proposals won't get implemented until after this hard fork. And then just because they won funding does not mean that the majority of that voting community, which is tiny, actually wants to support that particular change that they've worked on. They just got money to work on the problem. And so this kind of lack of cohesion and focused effort, you know, towards those larger goals, that larger roadmap, those things have not existed. And this is kind of what I'm saying. We can look at the circle as the one that we're talking to. You know, we can start to do that, but the circle has to also start to seem competent, start to actually be productive, start to do intelligent things. And there just literally hasn't been time to do that.
Appreciate that. And I suppose then that my final thought on this, I'm going to throw this and I'll shut up and let other people talk, so apologies, is surely part of the mandate then, or the remit of whether it's the circle or whoever it is that takes on board this thing, should be outreach. I came a little bit late to the conversation, but I did hear Quasar mentioning that, and surely outreach should be, you know, obviously the amount of people that submit and the amount of people that then vote, they're all tiny proportions of the overall Cardano community, right? So outreach shouldn't be in priority.
Well, yes and no. I don't know. You know, like, it looks like we're going to use the Drip Drops platform to vote for the next circle representatives. And I think that's good. It could be horrible. I don't really know. I feel like it's worth trying, because if we do that, the minimum ADA required to vote on circle representatives is only going to be 5 instead of 500 ADA.
Oh, I see.
You know?
Sorry, I meant when people are putting, sorry, I think you misunderstood. Maybe I worded it wrong. But when you're putting your proposal through, shouldn't there be something when you're going through and you get approved by the circle, approved by Catalyst, approved by something, that part and parcel of that should be outreach? You should be promoting and pushing that you're on the Cardano blockchain, and that should be something that it should be part of the prerequisite, if you like, for an application.
Right. Yeah, I don't disagree, but we haven't experimented much with the experiment in that regard, is my response to that. So
That was a good question check, a series of questions and great answers there, Bob. I'm curious, please. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. How are you doing? Hope you're doing great. Been listening for just a little short while, and most of these things that were mentioned require some kind of structure, require regular funding, and currently how it's done is that structures are being proposed as proposals in Catalyst, but this is not feasible in terms of you don't know if the proposal gets voted on, you don't know when the funding is coming, and so on and so forth. So the idea was to create this treasury, this VPA and PA treasury, to set up a fund to manage or to set up these recurring infrastructures in a decentralized way. And I think this is also what sort of came out of the circle. I know Jeremy B is working on this because I've been working with him together on the first working group that is connected to this treasury. That is the VPA working group. And the idea is that the VPA group within all the groups in Catalyst is still the quote-unquote smallest with a couple of hundred. It's smaller and much smaller than the voters and the proposers. So the notion we're going after is if we can set up a completely decentralized workflow for the VPA process to maintain and nurture it in a decentralized way with no overhead, then we can roll it out slowly to the PA, adapt it with obviously everyone involved as a PA that wants to be involved, the same as with the VPA working group. We've been calling out multiple Discord. I also started giving out shouts on Twitter, but most of them, many of them are sometimes trolled, and I don't know if I'm going to continue with this, but that's the current state. There, we need structure, we need a little bit of coordination, but the thing is that we're striving for decentralization, and those are two opposite poles. So obviously the things we're going to try will be very experimental, but we have to try somewhere in order to just talk about what we can do or what we shouldn't do. Then we will not make any progress. And obviously I can understand IOG and Charles, they will not they cannot keep this running for 4 or 5 more years and wait until we get off our asses. So I appreciate very much this creation of the working group. I read the charter, and the charter specifically states that the aim is not to have single persons responsible, no like steady stakeholders, and that it should all be aligned with the ethos of Catalyst. So I urge anyone that has thoughts or like that has issues with this, first please read the charter of the Treasury and the VPA group to better understand what it is really they and everyone there wants to do. This is an open group, everyone can do anytime, and yeah, I think this will help us to move forward and also to create data and evidence that we as a community are able to self-organize and create decentralized processes that actually can maintain something like the VPA process. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Dan. I think there's a certain amount of courage that is required. Speaking your mind and or sharing information, and such as your tweets, the courage to continue beyond the trolling, especially when it's the right thing to do, or hell, even if it isn't the right thing, if it's something different and it's something to help improve, let it be wrong. I'm fine with wrong as long as the intent is there for it to be an experiment and try to get it right. So let's all, support one another where we can, when we can, how we can, and keep courage to keep the community communicating and collaborating. I've changed my mind on many things multiple times, and always allow myself that space to be wrong and that space to change, my attitude in the way that I look at things. So I think that's very important, whether it be a small group like the VPAs or a larger group like the general ADA holder. You know, the courage to maintain commitment through is a huge one. And yeah, sometimes it is time draining, energy draining, and mentally it's a stressor because we're pushing the boundaries of our reality in a way of how we've been accustomed to working and communicating. And Jesus Christ is a global community. You know, like Charles said, it's the largest digital nation state. So yeah, there's going to be some issues, going to be some visions, some disagreements, and you know, the courage to sit through the conversation and find the common ground is the goal.
Very well said. I love it that your mind is like of a child, and soul is like of a sage. Beautiful put, bro. Very well said. And
Thank you.
Yeah, I try not to take it also personally, but it happens, and if I do it, remind me to not take everything so seriously.
Likewise, and I'd like to thank everybody in the community that's already done that on multiple accounts for me. I can certainly get wrapped up in stuff, and I've got some great friends here that will and have said, "Hey, Quasar, go take a smoke, take a break," and it's valuable.
I
It's
would
much
like
needed.
to nominate Quasar for the president of the Expo. Is that a thing?
No, you're ruining it, Lido. There's no president.
There will be pushback, but yeah, sure.
A decentralized president.
Exactly. I thought we're building a bureaucracy. We got to have presidents.
Hey, I will stage my own coup. If you elect me as president, I will overthrow myself every day.
You know,
Quasar will be the president's mouth.
I think the interesting thing about presidents, right? You know, like the last few years in our little small town, my partner and I have gotten involved with a group of the nonprofits in this little town, and they'll say, you know, we govern by Robert's Rules of Orders, right? And when you actually read Robert's Rules of Orders, you realize, they don't do that, not one bit. But when you read Robert's Rules of Orders, the task of the president is to preside. He maintains order and sees that the decisions of the board are followed through. But there's no real authority other than to preside over the meetings, maintain order, and see that the board follows up on what the board decides. And of course, not a fucking organization does that. So it's an interesting thing.
Well, if that is the description of a president, then I already has a president. I'm not gonna say names, but yeah.
It's not me or Quasar, I can tell you that.
Yeah, exactly. We're there just as janitors. We're the domestic engineers of the place.
I feel like we're tolerated, and they're very friendly about tolerating us. But that's basically what I feel like.
Lucas, I see you have something.
Yeah, I think that the sort of moment we're in is calling the world to behead all the tyrants.
It still says Lucas is connecting for me. I don't know if anybody else sees that.
I can hear Lucas fine, Lido.
Okay. So I think that the moment we're in is kind of calling us to behead all the tyrants of all of the scapegoats and all of the political step up to governing ourselves properly. And honestly, I think it's kind of like a homeopathic solution. It's like we try to, it's like let someone try to preside with a plan and an organization. And then like if they inspire and how they can structure and organize, very good. But we have, this appreciation of like certain values and things that keep us the attempt to do the impossible centralization or presiding is really helpful as a heuristic for how to govern a decentralized collective.
I love that, and I'm just going to write down beheading the scapegoat. Like, that's huge. That made an impact on me, Lucas. Thanks for sharing that, Archangel Bob.
Yeah, when I came in, Lido was kind of complaining about all these different circles and different sorts of circles, and that, believe me, I get it. There's so much that it's just rife for making jokes, and this kind of stuff. But I would say to Darlington that serious people are having serious conversations about holacracy, and I have not studied it. I've just listened to presentations about it, and that is most easily described from my limited understanding of it as circles within circles, kind of like the Cardano logo, just bubbles and bubbles and bubbles, and they just grow out and grow out and grow out. And I kind of like that. I like the idea of the growth that way. It seems very natural. It seems very geometric. But then that would imply to me that what the circles should be doing is encouraging and helping to build other circles. But they don't have that mandate, right? And it's not clear to me that the whole model is the one that's going to rule the day in terms of like how governance is built up. So please discuss.
Well, before we get into the serious discussion, I just restarted Twitter, and in my menu item, there's something called Twitter Circle, and I'm so confused right now.
Oh no.
And it's like the Cardano Catalyst Circle bug or what's going on here, but I can't wait to check that feature out, I guess. But yeah, back to the circle and circle thing. And for clarification, I think my confusion is that there are all these proposals funded from a voter perspective in the name or with consent of the circle. The fact that if somebody has a proposal in Catalyst that says something Lido Nation, you better be sure, I will want to make sure that I'm actually part of that, or like, sort of like, hey, do not use Lido Nation in your proposal, right? But it seems like the circle doesn't have that same clarity, right? So there's all these things that was funded from someone who doesn't know much.
I'm afraid he did get rugged. Criticize the circle, and you will get rugged. How do you behead circle? I don't know which order the hands were in, so checkpoint, Lucas. I'm curious, and I believe this shows. Okay, I think the show's was set for an hour, so we're going to start wrapping it up. So, final thoughts.
Okay, 2 points very quickly. The circle on circle, understand that. I think it's a great idea, but surely that brings in more bureaucracy and more complications, especially when there are different heads of different circles. That's the first thing that I wanted to say. And the second thing is that I think I absolutely agree with that kind of notion of the number of voters and the clicks that get voted in, because of the weight distribution of those that are holding a huge amount of ADA. I mean, I've spoken to Quasar about this before. I find that it's completely counterintuitive to what the whole process of Cardano is. Of course, you want to give people a voice and a chance to vote, but equally at the same time, that's something that's very easily manipulated. And I think that's where the flaw, that's where I see the flaw personally, in that you could have a great proposal, and there have been some great proposals before that just don't get funded. I'm out.
Thank you. Democracy itself hasn't become a scapegoat. Lucas, go ahead.
I think that holacracy is the attractor that everything ultimately draws towards, because so right now, or you have circles, there's no mandate that circles are building other circles, but guess what? Circles that build other circles that do it in a process that then, the new circles they build brings energy back to them and helps them maintain themselves, and then they grow greater in their capacity to do more of it. So like if I take a successful business model and then use that money to invest in another great idea and then aggregate that together, then I have a snowballing platform of wealth, and that's exactly how the economy works. And if it's done by a collective that is like doing peer-to-peer review and governance and holding people accountable to, the right values that keep the regenerative system up spiraling and accountable to itself, then it inevitably, this is how the cooperation is success. If you don't cooperate, you'll fail to others who do. A win-all paradigm rate is like a sea that raises all ships.
Yeah, it's pretty deep for me. I'm going a few layers into what you said. Archangel Bob, I did mute you just for a minute, but please unmute yourself if you'd like to follow up.
I'm sorry, I'm multitasking at a gas station, which is probably stupid, but here I am. I've understood the fears about whales, right? But I don't, and maybe I'm just a pie in the sky guy, but the whales that are in Cardano are whales because they've worked their ass off for years, or they bought into the roadmap and put a lot of money into it. That's why they're whales. They either worked really hard or they spent a lot of money to be a whale. So I'm not so concerned about them. There are times I have been concerned about them because of the de-emphasizing of education, because that's to circle around. That's really what needs to happen, right? In an organic way. People like Josh Ackpan there, he's been around forever. He does amazing things for this ecosystem in Africa, in Nigeria, the heart of it, right? And that is a big, big deal. And somehow he's taken care of himself. It's not because of Catalyst, it's because he works his ass off. And I think that when we talk about the whole holacracy model and the circles, it's going to be circles formed by those groups who are doing that work and have found their measure of growing success. And those are going to be the voices that are going to be listened to. It's not going to be a bunch of stoners who've been brainstorming all night, right? It's going to be the people that have worked and have built up something. And that's what I mean about understanding what some of these things imply. Whale manipulation is not the issue in Cardano the way it is in Ethereum and Bitcoin, right? Nobody's manipulating the price of Cardano other than those traders that trade shit every day to make a few percentage points, on their daily trades. The massive ADA is held in wallets. The massive ADA is at work. So that's just a thought there that I had. And I really need to go, but I should appreciate everybody. Thanks.
Thanks, Archangel Bob. Checkpoint, go ahead, and we're going to wrap this up here in just a couple of minutes. So,
final thought then, and again, sorry, these are all kind of I'm kind of playing devil's advocate on a lot of these. Well, actually, not some of them. But the question then, shouldn't the whales have a responsibility if you're investing into the Cardano ecosystem and you're investing into something that you believe in? And I'm not talking about the traders. I'm talking about those people, those holders that have got huge amounts in their wallets, and nobody's disputing the fact that those that have worked hard to get to where they have within the ecosystem. There are those that have bought in. Surely there's a responsibility for whales to help develop and input on the future of the platform.
Absolutely, and it's been a source of frustration for me my whole time in Catalyst, and it's fun too. Where are the whales in the good African proposals? Why do these things struggle to get funding, right? And if they bought into the roadmap, then why aren't they buying into building out there? Why? You know, that's a question I have for every fucking one of them.
Honestly, I think that this points us towards, like, we need to honor the role that the successful businesses in the old economy have played. Like, how can we interrelate Web3? Honestly, I mean, and I know this is probably controversial, like it is, but like, how can we interrelate Web3 or crypto NFT space, this thing we have going, with Amazon, with Facebook political system in a more public way? I think that the power of this is that we're talking about omnidirectional communication, and in omnidirectional communication and an incorruptible record of transactions, you have nothing to fear. It's incorruptible, is what I see.
Lucas, I'm so glad you joined and shared the things that you did. Omnidirectional communication. I think that takes us back to where we started with what's Circle supposed to do, or what can it do if it's omnidirectional communication through the groups, and that includes the traders to the little. I say little, I don't mean little, but to the small bag ADA holder. It's important. Session, I saw that you come up. Would you like to say something to close out or have a thought?
I honestly just came up so I could post post a tweet on the top.
Man,
before you close it out. Before you close it out, you know what I mean?
All right. So, and represent the opportunist. Always got to do that. With that said, I think we'll probably retweet Sessions' tweet, since he took the liberty to put it up there and self-promote. It takes self-promotion. It takes some autonomy to do this stuff. So well done, Mr. Cruz. Anybody else?
Thank you. Thank you. It's not a comfortable thing for me to be spamming the hell out of people and doing the things that I'm doing to get attention. But this is what you must do if you're convicted in the project that you're working on. And I am.
Man, you taught me a lesson during the last voting, Fund 8, the way that you pushed your proposal and everything. I was like, another tweet from Session, Jesus. But guess what? Who got funded? Who didn't? So you taught me a lesson there. Anybody else want to say something to close us out?
I would just say, with all this chatter, I'm glad it's happening on Twitter Spaces. But I hope we're not having this conversation with just Quasar and Archangel Bob, because as you've heard, they're not the presidents, right? So I hope there's more buy-in from the community. There's more conversations. There's more questions to all the people who's trying to push this Catalyst Circle thing forward and question out. And that's good. And I think he's doing it because he has the least power in the bureaucracy right now. So he has the free time to go do that stuff. The people that are closer to the decision are not in these spaces. right? The people, the person who Quasar is replacing are not in these town halls. Who Quasar is sitting in for. So I guess my call here is to push the Twitter people to venture into other channels too and engage with the circle. In as much as we're gonna try to get them to come to Twitter, I think we should also try to go to where they are as well, to keep the conversation going.
Yes, omnidirectional. Lucas, go ahead and close us out.
I just pinned at the, or shared to the top a tweet with a text. It's a like console type. It's some of my analysis of this is a big process that has to do with ecological limits inside and out, and the transition of forest to desert, and the necessity of founding a system to reforest again. And I'm like super excited about the possibility of projects that align what is going on in this space with the activities in the whole rest of the economy, without necessarily people who don't even have computers, or who are really doing very on the ground things. And when I'd love, check out that tweet. It's my writing on this. Reach out to me. I love analyzing this stuff. I would happily come to any other spaces you invite me to.
Well, thank you for sharing that, and thanks for stepping up and speaking. Thanks to Ada hosting the space. Thanks for Lido for what he said. I think it was a compliment to what I'm doing. I'm going to take it that way. But yeah, keep the communication going. Twitter Space is just as a bubble as a Telegram channel. So if you don't find a way to get between all of them and to get the information to all the groups, then your bubble is becoming an echo chamber, and that's not really healthy either. And guess what? I've got pizza coming to the door. So with that, I'm going to mute myself and let the host do what they can.
You just inspired me, Quasar. I forgot all about Telegram. I'm hitting that next.
Go troll Telegram. Do it, man. Do it. It's fine for people to have their preferred way of communicating. It's not even right for me to say that it's fine. Everybody has their preferred way. That doesn't mean that they are limited to information or entitled to or to deny information to others, but ultimately it's everybody's responsibility to give the information if they want to be involved. With that, I'm going to mute and wish you all a fair day. Thank you.